Hello everyone, and welcome to your emergency estate planning package. And I want to thank you very much. As you know, this is an important topic, and what we're going to do here is kind of go through your binder as to the importance of these documents and the kit that you in turn have purchased. You've taken that first initial step to understanding and protecting you and your family and your loved ones from the evil empire and greedy in-laws. So on behalf of all of us from the Nevada Corporate Division and the Emergency Estate Planning team here, enjoy. Well, if you open up your binder, what you have here is essentially the introduction for your for the documents that are here, and quickly, it's kind of just an overview. We're going to get to some of the important documents here and what they mean. At the same time, many of these documents have what I deem as sweaters. Like when you go on a vacation, you sometimes don't know what the weather's going to be like, so you in turn pack sweaters because you know it might be cold, maybe some shorts. So some of these provisions actually may or may not, at some point in time, they're there for the just in case. It's kind of like buying insurance. You're doing it just in case something happens, because unfortunately we all think that we are immortal. But in this case, related to the documents, you see here, it's kind of like a summary of all your trust documents, all your statements, all your intentions. Here you're going to find within your trust the contents and whatnot, kind of going through what the trust wording. Now it gets a little legalese from the estate planning kit that you in turn have purchased and that system that I created, but please note that the documents themselves, the trust, this is the document that we're talking about right now, for you and your spouse, if you're married. There's 4 critical parts to a trust. One's the property transferred into a trust. There's the beneficiaries. That's the second critical part. There's a trustee that you in turn have to nominate, and then you the grantor, the person transferring property. Now, a trust protects assets for the beneficiary. So if you have kids or loved one, that's where the trust comes into play. So if you have real estate investments and it's transferred in your trust, then if something happens to you, unless there's a fraudulent transfer action, you in turn, those beneficiaries will have their assets protected that you in turn have placed in there. So I want to quickly kind of go through. Here you can see your the certain articles. Article 3 is kind of when everything gets started here. Let's just zoom in a little. Article 3 kind of talks about the trustee succession and trust advisor, essentially who's going to oversee your assets that are placed in your trust during your lifetime and after your death. So that's Article 3. Article 4 gets into the administration. How is your trust administered if you are incapacitated? Article 5 here is the administration of your trust upon death. Typically, you in turn have your spouse has access to all your assets. At the same time, if something happens to your spouse, then, and hopefully you've gotten into our package where you're able to have the property held up until your kids turn 25 at a minimum. That's usually the minimum amount of time, lengthwise, that I advise clients. So with that being said, Article 6 is important because it talks about specific distributions, and our staff has kind of asked you if you have any specific distributions. That can be money or property going to a charity. It can be a certain amount of money going to a family member or a loved one. That's where you want to place it in your specific distributions. Article 7 is important because that's what sets up the actual trust shares for your wife or your spouse if you're married, and at the same time for any children is here down in the family trust section. If you do have a tax planning trust, meaning if your assets are over $3.5 million and you have gotten in for our tax planning package, then we usually set up what's called a marital trust. But for the most part, most clients want to set up and deal with the family trust related to kids and whatnot, and wife's rights to withdrawal, and kids' rights to have access to the money. Typically, it's based on a HEM standard, health, education, maintenance, and support, which essentially means your descendants, if they're say under the age of 25, and they have a creditor coming after them, and they still need access to the money for health matters, education, or maintenance or support. If they have a debilitating disease, then this is where they actually turn to, and there's asset protection measures in here. Number 11, the remote contingent distribution, is kind of just if everybody's gone, if everyone's on an airplane and everyone passes away, what happens to your property? That's kind of what 11 talks about. Article 12 is a bunch of the sweaters, like I mentioned, dealing with underage and incapacitated beneficiaries. Article 13 is important because if you have IRAs or retirement plans, you do not want to place them in your standard trust. So please call us or get a hold of us for our IRA BRAT system, where we have our unique separate trust to provide your protection for your IRAs and retirement plans. It's too involved to get into right now, but just remember that. Also, the trust administration, this is where a lot of the sweaters are, as related to the whether or not there's a bond, whether or not there's trustee compensation is reasonable, who can employ professionals, trust accounting, how often do beneficiaries get access to the accounting. So again, it's the sweaters that I talked about earlier. The trustee's powers is important, especially when you're dealing with real estate, because we in turn have specific powers here enumerated that talk about real estate powers, section 1518. And also, you should want to state out, if you have specific real estate, multiple properties, as to who's supposed to watch over them. If you have different kids or managers watching over separate property, that's where you want to name those powers and duties related to, because the trustee may be someone different as it relates to handling your financial affairs. So it's something to think about. And again, Article 16, finishing up here, is just general provisions, talking about contest provisions, whether or not someone contests your trust, and the fact that they should get nothing if they do contest it, which is common in most states. And again, when you're having purchased the emergency estate planning system, it's something to, again, more than 60% of families have nothing in place. So the fact that you did something and got it, we are very happy to see that, to protect your hard-earned assets.